let your conscience be your guide.
I don't want my 8-year-old seeing any sexually explicit stuff. Why is it okay to go after one and not the other? This is Rhea, and this is Just the Who of Us, where we talk about a range of topics, including life events, current events, spirituality, entertainment, family relationships, as well as answering listener questions and more. We have Tracy from the Contrast Project with us, who you will be meeting again.
Oh, yeah. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. I want to first say thank you for being here, but also I want to acknowledge and appreciate your allyship as June, where our focus is pride. Whether you are a part of the community or an ally for the community, you know, we need both. We need allies. We need support.
Absolutely.
And for people to understand that just because you can't relate to something doesn't mean that you have to be a douchebag to people who can. So
nope, that's right. That's right. That's right.
It's important.
I have long been an ally. I have members of the LGBTQ community in my family and on my friends list, personal friends.
Yeah.
Hashtag straight but not narrow.
Wait, I'm gonna have to use that.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, that's right. I follow a lot of the ally groups, online, social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I have a lot of people, like I say, that are friends of mine that are members of the LGBTQ community, friends, families, and we're all candid about it, and I'm certainly very vocal about it. I think that the members of the community have told me personally that they appreciate straight allies just as much as they do support from their own members of the community.
Right.
It becomes necessary for allies to be vocal and because let's face it, there are even allies that are in the perverse about being supportive of the LGBT community.
Right.
Even though they are in their heart, they sometimes might be standoffish about actually getting involved in that. Now, you may have members, you may have ally friends that will, like and emoji and smiley thing on some of your posts.
Internet support.
But you don't actually see them. Yeah, but you might not see them doing that, and that's okay. Not everybody can be an activist. Not everybody can be, totally involved in the community and activism, in whether it be silent protests or it be peaceful demonstrations, what have you.
Right.
I know several journalists that are very much allies. However, in their professional capacity, sometimes they are reluctant to appear at activist gatherings. In other words, peaceful demonstrations or protests of that kind. Whether it be some people are reluctant to do so, and I would say I for a fact know that some during the big movement, Black Lives Matter, several years ago. There were a lot of people that were reluctant to go to these gatherings for fear of not so much being outed as being an ally, but as being, placing themselves in harm's way, fearing that there would be retaliation at the demonstration, and more often than not, there was no retaliation.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people fear the unknown and fear things that don't even exist.
Yeah, I have people that I know, not a lot, but there are a couple. I mean, me and my daughters, we go to the Pride events here every year. We have for past like 4 or 5 years. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And some people were kind of like, well, why are you taking your children, your teenagers to these events? Well, because I want to show them what it means to support people. Like, oh,
Right.
you're introducing them to this and that. And like, well, I'm not having them out there at 10 o'clock at night where no one's walking around naked. No one's like banging in the street. Like, what do you think this is?
Right.
It's literally a celebratory event. So like,
it's just, yeah.
At the most they might,
it's very much straight.
Yeah.
They might see a couple of guys.
Like,
they might see a couple of guys holding hands.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. At the most, like,
I know. Well, here's the deal. Here's the deal. And they will tell you this all day long, that they know that during let's say prime hours of a pride parade or event that's in public, they are adults too. They're not freaking perverts that the damn the far right, and this is coming from the far right, who are, as they say, intolerant. They post things far out of context because yes, sometimes pride celebrations do lean a little racy and adult.
Yeah.
But not when children are there. Not when children are there.
Now it's going to be different at night,
those things,
imagine, but
the images. You see what you see when you see images like that. That's coming from somebody that's definitely posting it out of context. And the same goes for drag performers. For the most part, when you go to a drag show, there are different kinds of drag shows too. Some will be, again, more, some will be more adult themed and more along the lines of burlesque. But for the most part, there's a lot of family friendly drag performances.
Absolutely.
And a lot of venues have family friendly events with drag performers present. Just like one of the nightclubs in Florida recently, as we were talking before about some of the bills and legislation happening in the state of Florida, which is causing a lot of trouble. Some of the venues in Florida that have pride celebrations have canceled, whereas others have not. Others have basically adjusted. They have adapted and adjusted to the legislation and prepared for it. The same with like nightclubs, restaurants, microbreweries. We have a lot of microbreweries in Florida, and they have drag trivia nights and things like that. And for the most part, they are family friendly. However, in the microbreweries, I know in particular, several of them in Jacksonville in particular, do have a trivia night with a drag performer hosting, and a well-known local drag performer. Drag performers do dress up extravagantly. And it's part of the performance.
It's part of the flair.
A lot of people are it's part of the performance. And so these microbreweries have basically CYA covered their ass, and they've made their trivia nights adult only, 21 or over, with with a valid ID. And so quite honestly, a lot of them that have good followings, they still have good turnout, and they've not seen a problem with it. However, in Central Florida, one establishment, which is part of a larger chain, I don't know if you've heard of Hamburger Mary's. They started in San Francisco, and have since they have like 30 different establishments across the country. There's one in Jacksonville, by the way.
Okay.
And it's for the most part, Hamburger Harry's is a family friendly establishment, but they have often drag performances, and on the nights that they do, they're adult only now because of the legislation. Well, a nightclub in Florida has sued the state of Florida in Orlando, Hamburger Mary's establishment. They are suing the state of Florida and the governor personally because it encroaches on their livelihood. Oh. And there's already a law in effect that if any legislation or referendum to a local law causes an establishment to lose at least 20% of their revenue because of the legislation, then they can actually recuperate their losses from the state.
Okay.
So they have this particular establishment in Central Florida has a Sunday drag brunch, and it's usually by reservations only. And they claim that they have lost they say that they have lost at least 20% of their revenue because of the legislation, which, by the way, doesn't even go into effect till July the 1st.
Oh.
However, they, they're preemptively, adjusting their own, livelihoods to that. Yeah. But again, because of these legislation and the legislation, and anybody can look it up. You can Google it, the Florida legislation, drag queens, that kind. Anything you put in there, you'll find it. Look up Governor Ron DeSantis is a freaking idiot. That'll bring it up. Yeah, you'll find it. But yeah, I will say, yeah. But the legislation itself, if you do read it, if your folks listening actually finds it and brings it up and reads it, it is very vague. It doesn't actually mention drag queens or drag performances. It mentions it pretty much explicit language about being sexually explicit in the presence of minors and all this other stuff. And it's really loaded down with a bunch of talking points from the right, talking points from them. And, by the way, Moms for Liberty, who happen to be, in my own personal opinion, domestic terrorists. There, I said it. I don't care. I'm the kind of guy, I don't care what I say. I'm a semi-retired old guy who was raised in the woods, and sometimes I have no filter.
This is just how I feel. Okay. And this is coming from me. I have my youngest is 8, my oldest is 23. I'm not going to take my kids somewhere that I'm not going to research first. So I feel like if you don't want your kids to see it, well, then don't fucking take them there. That's just how I feel about it. Like, there you go. I'm not going to destroy somebody's livelihood, take away customers because I don't like something. I don't have to fucking go. That's just how I feel about it.
That's right. Yeah, and it's not just the establishments that have drag performances that are suffering. It's also the drag performers that rely on that cash. They rely on that as a livelihood. I know some full-time drag performers. Now, a lot of drag performers do it for the fun of it, or they do it as a part-time gig on the side. They have a day job and do this on the side. However, there are full-time drag performers, and this is going to affect their livelihood. No doubt about it. No question. And if we talk about pride parades, if we talk about pride celebrations and pride parades, here's another thing. If cities, now the ones I've seen are usually a pride parade is held in a populated area, maybe what you would call Main Street, USA. There's a lot of, they will have it in a populated area, which is lined with stores. And for the most part, they're not lined with big box stores. They're lined with local establishments, like a local mom and pop restaurant, or a local, a local clothing shop. The Pride parades in Jacksonville are held in an area that is just like that. It's one of those, what they call a walkable neighborhood. The neighborhood
so ours is usually
the
downtown.
streets are lined with in this area.
Yeah.
Yeah, this area is known for a lot of locals that have their own little businesses, been in business for a long time, and some of them rely on certain festivals during the course of the year. Like in Jacksonville, we have the Jacksonville Jazz Festival in Jacksonville, which is one of the largest jazz festivals in the country, by the way. We just had almost like 70,000 people at the last one.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And a lot of small businesses, yeah, and a lot of small businesses rely on festivals and events to, bolster their revenue. Pride parades are one such event.
Yeah.
That event that goes on, the parade itself is held on, pretty much one day. So it's a one-day event, and a lot of those businesses up and down that street where all these people are lined up, they actually make a lot of money. So you're affecting that. Now, is it going to put some of the, is the cancellation of Pride parades going to put some of these small businesses out of businesses? Well, it may. Sometimes a small business is operating from one month to the next, quite frankly. So they do rely on a good steady stream of people coming in and the patronage of their establishment, and Pride is part of that. The LGBTQ community is part of that. So alienating them from establishments, whether it be by boycotts and bans, that's another whole damn episode too. These idiots in the Bud Light ban with Dylan Mulvaney. I can't get over that. And they still have their panties in a wad over a can of beer. And Bud Light never intended to sell that beer, that commemorative can. They never intended to even sell it to the public. It was made specifically for Dylan Mulvaney to use on her social media and brag about it. That's all it was.
Really? I didn't know.
And so now they've lost billions of dollars in stock options and stock value. And eventually that's going to trickle down to the workers, people that are employed by Bud Light, people
because
that are employed
the big
by
people still get their money.
Will be late. Of course. But if a company starts losing that much money, eventually it is going to trickle down, and there will be layoffs.
Yeah.
And now, I think it's pretty darn. I think it's pretty darn hilarious now that Garth Brooks has now said that the bar he's going to open up in Nashville, he's going to serve that stuff. And if you're an asshole, he said, you can always go somewhere else and buy your beer. He actually said, if you're an asshole, you can go somewhere else. Kudos. I am now
pretty fair.
A Garth Brooks fan again, all over. I think I'm gonna make some graphics and videos and just put Garth Brooks music in the background. I'm serious. And now Cracker Barrel, the restaurant.
Oh, I did hear about that.
Has done the same thing. They're celebrating Pride Month. So here's my suggestion.
I was kind of surprised about that, though.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What are the rednecks going to eat for breakfast now? and Kellogg's. Tony the Tiger appeared with Dylan Mulvaney at the Tony Awards. Oh my God, their heads are exploding. Now, here's what we need to do. We need to have Dylan Mulvaney. Yeah. Hear me out. We need to have Dylan Mulvaney, Garth Brooks, and Tony the Tiger start doing photo ops at Cracker Barrel.
Oh God.
We need to have a Sunday drag brunch at Cracker Barrel where they serve Bud Light, which is by the way, I looked up Cracker Barrel's menu online, and they actually sell Bud Light. They do. So what they need to do is have a Sunday brunch. That's right. They need to have a Sunday brunch. Oh, and if you're on a hangover, some people pour beer in their cornflakes. So, I mean, now, what we need to do, we need to have a Sunday brunch at Cracker Barrel, a Sunday drag brunch at Cracker Barrel, when all they play and serve 2-for-1 Bud Lights and playing Garth Brooks music on loop. There we go. Problem solved. We could do, and I've often thought of this. I've never been one of those people that really is crazy about boycotts and bans. I've often thought that for the most part on the end run game, they don't really seem to, do much damage. However, this new Bud Light thing has really done, billions of dollars in damage to the company. But banning and boycotting, to me, I've never been one to do that. I spend my money where I want to spend my money. And frankly, if a company is, not, if they hold values that are not in line with mine, they're more than likely somewhere I wasn't buying from in the first place. I found that to be true.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let your conscience be your guide. If you're one that wants to boycott a certain, company or product or whatever, I mean, that's your business.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's all in all, I think this one that's going on with the Bud Light folks, and now you got Garth Brooks, and now you got Cracker Barrel, and it's just got these people. It's got their undies in a bunch, and it really, what are they saying about themselves? Really, I mean,
right,
when they blatantly come out and talk about that kind of stuff, what are they saying about themselves? Really, they're saying that they're xenophobes. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's where I stand, and that's where I stand on the podcast. And like I said, I don't really have a I don't really have a filter. So, I will talk about anything. I'll talk about anything. And the podcast, the theme, I really don't have a theme on my podcast. My whole mission statement and vision and whatever you want to call it, I've always said that the podcast was random, relevant, and real. So I'll have random topics. I'll have relevant topics, and the reality is sometimes I drop F-bombs. So there may be several episodes that are not safe for work.
I can relate. Yeah. I can relate. Yeah. I just put all mine as explicit
okay.
just to be on the safe side.
Okay. That's okay. So what are you doing for what are you doing for Pride Month? You and your daughter going out to a Pride celebration?
So ours actually isn't until August. So I don't know why. It's usually in July.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's usually in July, but it's not until August this year. So yeah, well, me and my 3 daughters, or my son might go. It's my oldest son too, if he doesn't have to work. But yeah, the 4 of us will probably go. I don't take my youngest yet, just because he's 8, and there's certain conversations I have with them before I take them. He's also a little immature for his age, so
right.
There's certain things that I don't include him in yet, but I do talk to him about certain things just because I don't want him, even as a kid, to go to school and judge somebody for something just because he doesn't know any better. You know what I mean?
Understandable.
Yeah.
Yep. 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 That just made me think too when you said that, parental control and parental involvement, in their kids and, teaching their kids and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And it may immediately, as we were just talking about, the drag performers, and I had a train of thought hit me, the drag story hour.
Oh yeah,
And people that are all up in arms about the drag performers reading story time to kids in libraries, and of course that's going to be put to the test with the new legislation in Florida too. However,
right.
what like we said before too, how drag performers do dress extravagantly, and it's a little over the top. It's not something that they wear on a daily basis. It's dress up.
Right.
I mean, it's dress up,
Right.
and it's part of their performance. It's part of their performance. And a lot of drag performers that do the story time, they will actually dress in a themed outfit.
Yeah.
Themed to the books that they're going to read that day.
Yeah.
And that's a fact. It's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of parents take their kids to the story hours. And I'm thinking to myself, now, if these laws go into effect and they start banning these story hours, what a couple of things come to mind. Are you going to fine and arrest, or the parents of these children that take them to a drag story hour?
Yeah.
Will the parents be held accountable for child abuse because of the legislation? Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And secondly brought to mind the fact that all these people that are bitching about these books being read by drag performers, when was the last time any one of those knuckle draggers went to the library and volunteered their time to read a book to kids?
What
Never.
I don't understand, okay, so as far as, people are like, oh, well, the reason we don't want to take our kids to see this man dressed like a woman, blah, blah, blah. Your kid can turn on stuff on TV and see people making out or, going to have sex and whatever. Like, we're not trying to pass laws for sexually explicit songs to not be available to kids, sexually explicit performances of straight people and things like that's sexual too. So why do we care about our kids seeing this but not this? It's no different. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I don't want my 8-year-old seeing any sexually explicit stuff, whether it's straight or gay.
Oh, well, sure.
Like,
right.
So why is it okay?
Right. Exactly.
To go after one and not the other is what I don't understand.
Right.
And it's just,
it's kind of like, it's kind of just like, I don't know if you may not be old enough to remember all the censorship hearings with Tipper Gore and Frank Zappa way back in the day. Tipper Gore.
Mm-hmm.
Tipper Gore has the wife of Al Gore.
Okay.
She was waging a war on censorship of lyrics and music and, all this kind of stuff. And of course, Frank Zappa at the time, a lot of his stuff, and I got a funny one here for you on that too. But he said to her in the hearings, he told her, paraphrasing in so many words, Miss Gore, what you're proposing equates to the same thing as treating dandruff with decapitation.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He said it. And it's true. It's true. And on a funny note, there was an album one time that was actually said to be explicit, a Frank Zappa album that was said to be explicit and couldn't be played on a certain radio station in a certain town. And I'd have to look it up to find out. But the album in question was actually an instrumental album. There were no words on it.
Huh?
How can that be? How is that explicit?
How does that make sense? Right.
I think maybe they just read the album cover.
Right.
I know. So we're banning album covers.
Oh my God.
This was years ago too. People were really uptight back then. So. But we're going full circle. We're actually going back. We're turning back the clock and going back to the dark ages. Freaking nuts.
It's I don't know. I don't understand. A lot of it I don't understand. Like, we focus on this and not this, and it's deep though. It goes back to voting. Not, when you don't vote, you can't make an impact on certain things, and that's really something that I've tried to teach my kids a lot about lately. Impact your community by being a part of it, by being active in it, by voting and things like that, so you can make a difference, and you can make things be present that you feel are appropriate and beneficial and things like that. Even though there's some of them aren't even old enough to vote yet, but certain things, once you start talking to them when they're younger, once they get old enough to do it, they'll be knowledgeable and they'll be more likely to be involved in it.
And I would say too that just as important as voting on the national level, voting for Congress and the presidency and things like that, it's extremely important that our youth get involved in local elections.
Absolutely,
local elections,
maybe even more so.
City elections, absolutely. Local city elections, county elections, what have you, and your state elections. They have an impact, as you can well see that Florida, of course, is clearly, and if your viewers don't know this and haven't been watching, Florida is just going nuts. There are travel advisories to the state of Florida because of its oppressive legislation, which is led by an oppressive governor and oppressive Republican Senate. So the Florida House is red.
Okay.
The state is red, and most counties are red, and you gotta and I'm not down. Everybody's vote counts. Everybody's vote count. But let's face it, you can do the math. You can look it up. I'm not lying. I'm not making it up because I'm a liberal Democrat. I'm telling you that a lot of Republicans in the state of Florida are over 50. I'm over 60, but please. They're over a certain age, a lot of them much over a certain age, and a lot of them that vote that way are also Fox News fans. I said it, and
I get what you mean.
It's just not a play. And typically older, retired, and I mean much older than retired, I mean elderly people that still vote, absolutely vote. They go on election day, went down there, had coffee, ate at the local Cracker Barrel, which they can't eat at anymore, and they cast their vote. They make a day out of it. They actually put on their Sunday best, some of them. I mean, really, literally. I mean, so it's a spectacle. It's a spectacle.
As an ally, what is your involvement in the community? What do you do with your platform to promote the importance and safety and support of the community?
Very involved online. I stay involved in it. I talk about it on my podcast. I share their information when there's a drag show, when there's a forum. They have live forums. Some of the local LGBTQ members of the community have forums at a couple of the local nightclubs. They'll all get together, question and answer. They have open mic nights and things like that. I share all of their information wherever I can, and I have an awful lot of social media sites and presence, I would say. So I share whatever I know and whatever's happening, and they send me information quite frequently. They will send me stuff and tell me, "Hey, we're having this thing on Saturday night,"
Oh, nice.
and they invite me, and And yeah, so yeah, I mean, I do what I can there, and when I do go into town, I again, like I said, over the last year or so, I've just been a little bit more homebodied,
right?
For no particular reason, for no particular reason other than I'm out here working the farm every day. So
well, that is something that keeps you a little busy.
It's got to be done. Somebody's got to do it.
Right. Let everybody know where they can find you on social media and your website.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I didn't mention the website before, but yeah, you can find the Contrast Project on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Spotify, as well as Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Our website is thecontrastproject.tv, not .com. It's .tv. And on the website, I would say too, there's a different experience there because all the videos and audio are available, but there are also full-length blog posts.
Oh, nice.
Which I include. I'll include show notes and things like that.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you for being here with us today, and we look forward to seeing/hearing more from you.
Cool. And like I always say on my podcast at the closing, always stay vigilant, be safe, take care of yourselves and each other. Until the next time we meet, peace.
If anyone wants to chime in, or if anybody has questions they want us to answer or topics to discuss, you can leave that on the Facebook page. Visit www.philolity.net. That's FALLOLITY.